Hello everybody, I am Ardhan Dude. You are watching Eddie's English Literature. In today's discussion, I am going to discuss a few of the points on the tragic irony basically, but the other type of ironies I will also carry out a discussion with a lot of examples from literary text, types of irony in literature, particularly the four types of irony that we often meet: the verbal irony, the situational irony, the dramatic irony, and the cosmic irony. The verbal irony is when a speaker says something but means the very opposite. The intention of the speaker is here ironical. The situational irony is based on the situation. Here, the discrepancy between what is expected to happen and what actually happens. So the reality versus the intention is the very ironical. The dramatic irony is when the audience or the very readers knows that something the character in the story is not aware of. The cosmic irony is obviously related to fate or destiny, where destiny or the fate plays a vital role in comprehending the very situation. Now, first of all, what is tragic irony? Tragic irony, is a literary device that occurs when the audience or the readers is aware of a situation or a fact or a kind of a reality that the characters in the story is not at all aware of. This creates a sense of tension and suspense. As the audience or the readers is privy to the information that the characters are not, the audience or the readers knows that something tragic is going to happen. The tragic irony is often used in tragedies when the readers knows that the tragic hero is headed for a downfall, the tragic fall. But the hero is not aware of his own downfall. And this type of dramatic ironies or a kind of tragic ironies is reflected in variety of ironical situations that we often meet in dramas. Now the problem is that is the dramatic irony and the tragic irony same? Yes, of course the intention of these two ironies are same, but they are not exactly yielding the same result. Dramatic irony is when the audience knows something that the character is not aware of, that I have already stated you. This creates a sense of tension and suspense. As the audience is the privy or aware of that information when the characters on stage is not aware of. So this kind of ironical part is being played in maximum of the tragedies, and many of these ironies which is often played, if it had the tragic intention, then it becomes a tragic irony. So the characters of the story or characters on stage or the characters which are performing on stage is not aware that he is falling down. He is not aware of his hubris, he is not aware of his hamartia, and he is downward falling. And we the audience, we the readers can comprehend his character that he is falling down. So the tragic irony is the sub-branch of dramatic irony. Dramatic irony is a whole of the gamut, but the tragic irony only ensues tragic pathos in that. An example of tragic irony can be found in William Shakespeare's play Romeo and Juliet, where the audience is aware that Juliet is not really dead, but given the person of deep stupor, and that Romeo is going to kill himself because Juliet is dead, or presumed that he is dead. But the characters that are performing on stage is not at all aware of the tragic situations that ensues. In Oedipus' Rex, where the audience is aware that Oedipus' tragic fate that he will unknowingly kill his father and marry his own mother, while Oedipus himself is trying to avoid that fate, but he unknowingly doing the same thing which is forbidden to him. In Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald, Gatsby's tragic fate is that his love for Daisy, and that love will lead to his own downfall. Although the audience knows this, and Gatsby does not know this, and he is falling down. So tragic irony can also be found in real life, such as when the person takes a certain action believing that it will give a good result, but ultimately it does more harm than doing good, So the tragic irony as a literary device is a powerful tool that arrests the audience or that arrests the reader's mind instantly, and it can exhibit a variety of emotions such as it creates sadness, empathy, horror, or even leaving a long-lasting impact on the reader's mind even the story has been completed its reading. Tragic irony can be seen in The Boy Who Cried Wolf, the popular story that we have learned from our boyhood, that the boy falsely alert everybody that there is a real wolf, but nobody comes, but nothing comes. But at one day, the real wolf comes and he meets a tragic end. So the tragic irony that I have said, that it is a kind of emotional or a kind of literary device that adds the emotions or that adds a sudden shocking emotions to the audience, and that emotional journey is made possible by this tragic irony or this device of tragic irony. Compiling all these facts, I will add a few more examples from the history of English literature as well as from different books or different tragic irony examples. The notable example is William Shakespeare's Macbeth. That is, the witches told him that Macbeth will be the future king, but he does not realize that the prophecy is a disguised one, deceitful one, and it also is a hidden message that he would never be, his sons would never be the king hereafter. So here the message is very clear that the tragic downfall of Macbeth is inevitable. In the novel of Mice and Men by John Steinbeck, Lenny kills Carly's wife without realizing the tragic consequences of his actions. In Greek myth of Icarus, the character is gifted with wings made of feathers and wax, but he is warned by his father that not to fly too close to the sun. But Icarus, being romantic, being so much with his power and wings, unfortunately he flies too close to the sun and the wax melts, resulting in his death. The story of Gift of the Magi by O. Henry. A young couple, Della and Jim, sells their most prized possession to buy each other the beautiful Christmas gifts. They possessed, Jim possessed the golden watch, whereas Della possessed a long curly hair. But they sacrificed their gifts, being a Magi, and they sacrifice their gifts to buy gifts, and their positions or the valuable position they had, unknowingly they sacrificed for each other. So this is a beautiful example of tragic irony. In The Death of Salesman by Arthur Miller, Willie Lamon believes that being well liked and successful in sales will bring him happiness, ultimate solace in his mind, as well as success. But what happens in the story, you all know, it ultimately leads to his financial ruin and his own death. So the great American dream ruined his own life. So here the laissez-faire economics and all such things has been discussed through tragic ironies. Now, as an audience or as a readers, we are all aware that what is going to happen, but the characters on stage or on the pages are not at all aware of it, and it makes a emotional impact in our understanding of the very story. So as a author, this tragic irony is so yielding one, so fruitful one. I like to continue this lecture with few more examples. Now here are few novels or the dramas that I have selected for you, and those dramas and novels will make a full understanding of the tragic irony. First of all, William Shakespeare's another play, Hamlet. Now in that Hamlet, we can find out the title character, the Prince Hamlet, feigns madness in order to take a revenge of his father's untimely death or murder. But his delay action leads to the very deaths of several other characters. He lost Ophelia, he lost Polonius, he lost his mother, he lost even his own life. Now, another novel, The Crucible by Arthur Miller. The character of John Proctor is falsely accused of witchcraft and ultimately chooses to be hanged rather than falsely confess to a crime he did not commit. Now again, in Greek myths of Sisyphus, that's interesting story, you must go through this piece. The character is punished by being forced to roll a boulder up a hill, but it would always roll down again, and he had to repeat the same task eternally. Now before each of the effort of gathering that stone once again, he forgets that it will roll down once again. So this is a sad tale of ours, and that motive has been repeated in several of works. In all these examples, what I mean to say, the very audience, the very readers, the very spectators are aware that there is a tragic outcome of that particular incident, of that particular choice, of that particular lead of the incidents, but the characters are not aware of. If they remain aware of this situation, they might have ventured the other way, but they are not aware, but we are aware. That's the tragic irony, and that's the build-up of the author's intention of creating emotional impact on that particular situation. Now, I like to add a few more examples here to elaborate that point. In King Lear by William Shakespeare, King Lear discovers that a kind of turmoil in his heart, who is the best of his daughters. So he disowns his loyal daughter Cordelia, believing his other daughters to be more loving. But what happens, we all know, it leads to his downfall and the loss of his kingdom and the tragic death that it happens hereafter. The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger. The protagonist, Holden Caulfield, tries to protect the innocence of children, but his actions lead to his expulsion from school, and ultimately he becomes mentally downtrodden, or it put him under mental breakdown. In the Greek myth of Orpheus and Eurydice, Orpheus goes to the underworld to rescue his wife Eurydice, but ultimately falls when he looks back to check if she is following him, causing her to be lost forever because it was the order given. Now another short story, The Lady or the Tiger by Frank Stocken. The protagonist must choose between two doors, one with a lady behind it and one with a tiger. He chooses one, but the outcome is not revealed, leaving with the readers, leaving us wondering about the tragic irony of the story. Now, it is quite intriguing psychological tale, but in Glass Renegades by Tennessee Williams, Tom Winfield wants to escape the reality of his life, but whatever he does leads to the further deteriorations of his family situations. Now, giving all these examples, I mean to say which of the tragic ironies are most appealing? The ironies that are equally shared with the audience. If irony is shared with the audience, then it cannot ensue the tragic impact or the ironical impact in total. So this has been the small lecture I have shared with you about tragic irony, about the irony as a pattern that has been used as a literary form in dramas, novels, or even in larger poems. These ironies are very much applicable in devising a category of a writing by which the artistry of the author is being depicted. You know, the tragic irony and is masterful display of Shakespeare, of the modern way of retelling the story in different perspective is also being possible by this interpreting tragic ironies. So the tragic irony as a literary form you have understood, and many points that I have gone missing, many points I should have added here, but a little bit of discussion of this kind will definitely help you in your future course of studying the tragic ironies or the ironies as a whole. So like, share, comment, and obviously subscribe to my channel so that you can get this kind of post or the likes. Bye bye. Thank you.